Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and today we are going to be going through CN's pooling opinion for version 2.3, namely Firefly, Jade, Ruan Mei, as well as Argenti. But without further ado, let's get into today's content. Subscribe! So starting as per usual, our context is going to be the same every single time, so I'm just going to briefly skim through this. It's deciding between who to pull and pre-release analysis, namely the creator experience program. It will cover the unit speculative kit before release with greater details. So look forward to the Firefly video that should be coming out very soon. And then these are opinions offering CN's perspectives based on the live stream event, and players should fundamentally still do their own due diligence. And finally, the target audience is meant for the free-to-play, low spenders, under the assumption that the viewer gets one unit, no idleness, and not pulling for signature like coins. Right, so jumping into our very first topic, which is going to be the estimated pool income as of version 2.3, roughly from the 19th of June to the 30th of July. You can see over here there's going to be our daily logins, our additional events, as well as the 3 codes if you guys haven't claimed the codes, new sim to universe, all that kind of stuff. Forgotten Hall. Roughly speaking, if you're a complete free-to-play for the first half, which is namely in Firefly's first half, a free-to-play can get 69 pools all the way up to 81 pools for the monthly pass holder, as well as 89 pools for the monthly plus battle pass holder. Then for the second half, it's going to be 23 pools into 34 and 34. So for a total combined for both the first half and the second half, it's going to be 93 pools for free-to-plays, 116 pools for the monthly spenders, as well as 124 pools for the monthly and battle pass holders. As usual, this is going to be a rough estimation, so there might be a little bit more here and there along the way. Right, jumping into our very first unit, and that is going to be one of, if not the most anticipated unit in honkaistarrail, Firefly. So Firefly is going to be our super break hyper carry, and essentially a boot heal but a AoE variant, right? So her skill, as we have seen from the live stream event, is that she reduces her HP but adds energy to her ultimate. And this energy, as you can see from the replay, it's going to be slightly more than half, maybe 60 probably. And for her enhanced skill, it's going to be add HP, as well as with a 3 target damage, implanting fire weakness. So what exactly is going to be this enhanced skill that's going to come into her ultimate, which turns Firefly into the combustion state, right? So she does gain access to the enhanced basic attack as well as the enhanced skill, also adding additional break effect as well as break efficiency. And her talent is going to be the lower the HP, the lower the damage you receive. But one thing to note for Firefly is that for technique, it is that it applies fire weakness for 2 turns to every single enemy in every single wave, pretty much for all content, right? So this technique pretty much always going to be used, especially if you're going to be going up against stages that are not weak to fire. Right, so this pretty much just makes Firefly the next unit like boot heal with a similar self weakness implant mechanic as well as break damage scaling. Note that for your fire weakness, it is not relying on effect hit rate, so you're guaranteed to imply fire weakness, right? So she will very likely function in a very similar team comp with break DPSs like boot heal, like your Harmony MC, Super Break, your Xue Yi, all that kind of stuff. And jumping into the supplementary 4 stars, that's going to be Gallagher, Misha, and Xue Yi. A fun fact for these 3 4 stars, they're actually all dead. If you guys, yep, I do read the story, so they are actually all dead. So Gallagher is gonna be actually our current best in slot sustain for break teams, and his idleness are all really good, right? We have break efficiency idleness all the way. And one thing to note is that because Firefly marks fire weakness, Gallagher is pretty much gonna be always dealing toughness bar damage, which can help greatly for Firefly reducing the toughness bar, which allows us to deal damage during her super break, during the break itself, all the kind of stuff, right? So that's gonna be that. And then jumping into the verdict, if you are gonna be a break comp main, that's gonna be a 10 out of 10, or otherwise then it's gonna be a 7 out of 10. So CM believes that Firefly alongside with boot heal, it ushers in a new era of DPS archetype where our DPS can have an innate weakness implant, which may or may not prompt more stages, more bosses, more content in the future, forcing players to be on the right element. For Firefly specifically, she might scale better than boot heal because she is less restrictive on the environment she's playing against. Main thing to note, if you guys remember how boot heal functions, you kind of need to get the ball rolling by applying and gaining your 3 stacks, right? In order to increase the toughness damage, in order to increase the break efficiency, because before you get these 3 stacks, boot heal's damage is very lackluster. Whereas for Firefly, as long as you get into an ultimate state as soon as you can, which you can get quite very easily, as you can see from our non-enhanced skill, Firefly's overall environment and combat is going to be more versatile, right, compared to Boothill. That being said, Firefly's team comp will very likely still be restrictive because as per our usual break DPS units, Firefly would very likely not scale well with like our crit buffers, our attack buffers, or our damage buffers. So the only unit that pretty much can come to your player's mind is probably going to be Harmony Trailblazer, Ruan Mei, or maybe some defense downs like Pelas and so forth. So a little bit more restrictive. Firefly's core mechanic, it will also be dealing significant break damage, but she will have lackluster damage before we can actually inflict break damage. So compared to Boothill, which actually still has a decent amount of crit and crit damage himself, he's still going to be able to deal some damage before breaking the target. Whereas for Firefly, this damage is very likely completely non-existent. So unless you actually break the target, or when the target is in a broken state, Firefly will not be dealing any semblance of damage, right? So keep that in mind. We do have to basically see how quickly can Firefly break the toughness bar, since it is expected that her break efficiency will be lower than Boothill, especially for single target, right? Because for single target, Boothill, single hit, you guys have seen before with Ruan Mei, it pretty much almost can just break any target. Whereas for Firefly, because fundamentally she is a destruction unit, it is quite unlikely that her break efficiency will be the same or better than Boothill. So that we'll have to see how the content will go forward in the future, right? So that's going to be that for Firefly. And jumping into our next new unit is going to be Jade, our very first, technically second support slash DPS hybrid, right? So similar to Robin, Jade is a support that can deal significant amount of damage via her ultimate and her follow-up attack. But the difference between Jade and Robin is that for Robin, it's quite easy to build her since you don't need speed, you don't need crit. The only thing Robin needs is going to be attack percentage and some energy regeneration, right? Or if you have really good attack, you can go jump into the physical damage sphere. But for Jade, it will probably be a little bit more difficult since her ultimate is still going to be relying on crit. So might be a little bit more problematic there. But jumping into a skill is going to be a speed buff as well as allowing the unit to deal additional damage, right? On top of minusing HP. Now, ultimate is going to be an AoE damage and enhances the next follow-up attack, and her talent is going to be for every 8 charge, deals 1 follow-up. Similar to how, you know, Himeko or similar to Xueyi basically, right? So for the first time ever, we have a support that synergizes perfectly with Blade, basically reducing his HP every single time when he attacks, on top of having a speed buff, which can be quite good for Blade that's trying to synergize with Bronyas, right? Or if you're going to be having a Blade running with Ruan Mei or even Sparkle, this is going to be all very, very nice. And beyond that, Jade seems to be a unit that focuses on damage output while remaining as a support. So this is going to be something that we haven't really seen before, and we are basically venturing into new territories that is going to be created by MiHoYo, right? So for the supplementary 4 stars, for Jade, it's going to be Serval, Natasha, and Asta. Asta, frankly speaking, is just the only one, best of the lot, with some playability with DOT and Monofire team comps, also decent idlers. But between all of these 4 stars, nothing too crazy to notice over here. Then jumping to the verdict, it's going to be, if you are a Blade or follow-up main, it's going to be a roughly 8 out of 10. Otherwise, can just keep it at 5 out of 10, right? And the reason is because CN believes Jade's value will be very largely dependent on how much damage herself brings to the table. Is this damage worth replacing over a second support? Because for example, if you're going to be running Blade, you're likely going to be running Blade with a sustain and 2 supports. Assuming you're not doing some zero cycle shenanigans with no supports, right? No sustains. So if that is the case, is it worth running Jade over, let's just say, a Ruan Mei? Or is it worth running over like a defense of like a Pella or Silver Wolf? Or maybe perhaps Bronya / Sparkle? Which one of these supports does Jade outperform? So there is gonna be some additional further testings, and for pretty much most of our hyper carry team comps so far, damage amplification has always been the recipe for the highest damage output, aside from our dual DPS such as DOT and follow-up comps, right? And follow-up comps itself, although Jade, she does have some follow-up, we already pretty much have a perfect team with Robin, Aventurine, Topaz, and Dr. Ratio. It's kind of a little bit in a weird spot where Jade doesn't really fill in a niche where she can perform to the best of her abilities. Alright, she outright performs every possible unit. But that being said, these are all speculations, so we might have to wait and see. Also, in the future, team comps that are constantly changing, our units are constantly changing, the mechanics of bosses, they're always constantly changing. So if you guys are going to be a little bit more future, having a little bit more future outlook, you believe that Jade stonks can go up in the future, then feel free to go ahead and invest in a little bit right now, right? This kind of reminds me of the situation with Topaz. You know how when Topaz first released, there was very, very little units that can synergize very well with Topaz, and follow-up team comp back then, it was just completely not even close to being the same strength as hyper carries. And look where we have right now, where Topaz functions very, very well. I'm not sure if you have seen the latest Memory of Chaos. Topaz, Himeko with Robin absolutely destroys the Memory of Chaos bosses, right? So, yep. that is going to be up to our future outlook. Overall, her value is going to be slightly lower since she doesn't really fit or excel in a niche right now, just like Topaz upon release. But going forward into the future, this might change, right? So that's going to be that. Then jumping into our rerun banners, first of all being Ruan Mei, the absolute greatest of all time. She's pretty much the only support in the game that can fit with hyper carry, that can fit with DOT, break, follow-up attack, and pretty much more or less any team comp in the future because of these pointers, right? Damage percentage, res down, break effect, break efficiency, speed buff, all of these are combined into a kit all in one. Right. Also, her Eidolons, E1 has a 20% defense down, while E2 has a 40% attack buff. Defense down being one of pretty much the best, strongest scaling debuff in the game, because the more defense down you have, the more damage is going to get amplified, right? So her signature icon is also going to be really helpful with damage rotations because of the 10 energy per wave, as well as being just overall great for Harmony MC if you're going to be running that as well, right? Also, she's skill point efficient, she's easy to build, you can run with high speed, you can run with low speed. Yes, you can run with low speed, right? Vonwag, a perfect synergy with every single break comp, very likely for months if not years to come in the future, right? And also lastly acts as a pseudo sustain due to Thanatoblum Rebloom, which has a slight action value delay that could prevent the boss from dealing damage to a team, right? So just a potential side there. So TLDR for Ruan Mei, she is actually the highest value across all 4 banners, especially if you don't have her, right? For new players, if she's going to be first copy, absolute 11 out of 10, you absolutely must get her. And for old players, if you are thinking about getting an Eidolon, right, you already have an Eidolon in mind, Ruan Mei's E1 or even all of Eidolons is going to be great, right? So DM believes that Ruan Mei is the only unit right now across all of these 4 units that genuinely changes everything for an account without Ruan Mei. Perhaps even more value than Aircron, simply due to the longevity, the universal application, as well as the impact of the support in honkaistarrail, right? As we all know, DPSs, they're temporary, but supports, they will always be eternal, right? A little bit more on Ruan Mei's Eidolons. Her E1 can be very impactful since we currently do not have access to 100% defense down unless we have Silver Wolf, Pella, and Resolution Lightcone, right? Making this one of the most impactful universal Eidolons in HSR till this day. E2 may seem a little bit redundant, but because Ruan Mei does not buff attack at all and is mostly focused on damage percentage, this addition can be very comfortable. And also E6 Ruan Mei, it is pretty much the strongest support until Robin's E6 came along, but still nonetheless a very good E6, right? TLDR, no amount of potential replacements can come, or at least in the near future, right? Because the way her kit functions is that it is designed to be timeless, since break efficiency, or rather the core function of break itself in honkaistarrail, it will never go away. Maybe perhaps in the future we have more units that give us more res pen, or maybe even more defense down, or maybe just higher multipliers. But unless MiHoYo releases a unit that straight up can outscale Ruan Mei's kit in every way possible, it is quite hard to essentially power creep Ruan Mei. And when that day comes, you can just simply run Ruan Mei to the second team, right? So as a unit, when it comes to longevity, when it comes to versatility, when it comes to the impact for an account, Ruan Mei is definitely going to be the best of all time, right? So TLDR, if you haven't gotten her, this is the one. Then jumping into our final unit, it's going to be Argenti, our pure fission hypercarry. Quite literally a bit of pure fission, maintain a pretty good usage rate for every single pure fission rotation. Even up to now, our latest pure fission, I believe it was DOT focused, Argenti still has some decent usage rate, right? So mini out can be spammed to clear waves with ease, and big out does significant damage to bulk in bosses. Good synergy with almost every single support because he is a attack crit hypercarry, right? Our OG archetype of hypercarries. Pretty much functions with everyone. Excellent usage even in Memory of Chaos, especially against enemies that are physical weak. Great for players lacking physical coverage, right? So all that. But that being said, there is one unfortunate thing, which is the pool value for Argenti is unfortunately not going to be anything higher than 1 out of 10. Because Argenti, alongside almost every of our older DPSs, inherently has a lower value when honkaistarrail progress in the future, right? In our version 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, and going to, well, approaching the end of Panikani and going to Shento might be 3.0. We will always have new mechanics, new bosses, new stages, and new team comps. And in CN's opinion, Argenti is considered as a old DPS, lacking the mechanics of a new DPS, namely 2.0 onwards. Specifically, things like res pen, things like weakness implant, and things like a fast damage tempo. All of this, they are being introduced to 2.x units, right? And as we approach the end of 2.x and going into 3.0, it is possible that even more DPS mechanics with even more insane functions, they can get introduced, right? And in order to kind of counteract all of these new mechanics and new kits, we are probably going to see more and more bosses and challenges and stages to balance around these new mechanics, right? Because this is going to be the nature of gacha games. There's no point releasing better, stronger mechanics if there's no place to even utilize them on, right? So it will take more investments to make Argenti or traditional crit DPSs to perform in a similar capacity compared to our new DPSs. This is not impossible. It's not to say that Argenti is just completely this dog shit unit, you can't use him, but it will take more from a player. And if you are talking about the path of least resistance or the path of efficiency, then Argenti itself as a value, it is really just not that great, right? You can definitely find better units alongside in the future if you want a more physical. And the fact that we quite literally have boot heal, which can implant physical weakness, it further reduces the appeal of having multiple elemental coverage, because in the future, what if you get even more units that can implant even more weaknesses? Then physical coverage, or rather elemental coverage in honkaistarrail might not even be a point anymore, right? So that's gonna be that. And in summary, our highest value is gonna be Ruan Mei, and our break DPS, if you're gonna be getting, is gonna be Firefly, and then our new support variant is going to be Jade. So some potential weaknesses is that for Firefly, we do have a rather restrictive team comp, right? And the performance, do expect her to fall off very, very greatly without Ruan Mei, similar to how Budo's performance with Ruan Mei is really, really bad, right? Between both, since Firefly and Ruan Mei, they're happening in the same banner, Ruan Mei inherently will hold more value than Firefly, because Ruan Mei herself, she can function without Firefly, but Firefly cannot function without Ruan Mei, right? So if you could literally only get one unit and you do not have both, then it is recommended for players to pick up Ruan Mei before Firefly, just in terms of opportunity cost, if I may, right? And then for Jade, she currently does not really see a niche that can be filled in the current meta, and this will lead to a little bit of an underutilization until future DPS or team comp emerges, right? Similar to Topaz, but look where Topaz is right now with the follow-up team comp. It is just so satisfying to play. So perhaps we could see something similar going forward into the future, right? So one final conclusion, version 2.3 is once again focusing on the weakness break meta with Firefly and Ruan Mei rerun, and Jade could open up new doors for new team comps, so do keep a lookout, especially for our Genzo units, right? And one last note, theory is never going to be the same as practical scenarios, right? So do not expect this to be everything. This is just opinions. Still do your own due diligence, right? So with that, we have come to the end of today's content. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I have not quit honkaistarrail, right? I have not gone. I'm still very, very much involved. I'll be looking forward to proof of Firefly and all that kind of stuff. So that's gonna be that. If you want to engage on Discord community, head on to our Discord, discord.gg/PokkeVillage, where we have a very active community about honkaistarrail and what waves on a daily basis. Want to check out my stream, the twitch.tv/music, really, or rather on Discord. So that's all I have for today. All the best for your Firefly pools or your Ruan Mei pools, and I'll see you guys next time.